Alright, so this time I went from a 1030 on my first SAT to a 1540 on my last. So I just want to give you guys some advice, some things that I learned over the years, and really try to give you guys some resources for you guys to be able to use. So I structured this like first part is just my journey, then it's some resources that you can use, and then some tips. Feel free to skip ahead to any section you want, but I just want to also give some context about like me and how I was actually able to get this score. So first, yes, it was in October of my 10th grade. I did my first PSAT, got a 1030, and then I worked a lot, because this is the original SAT, so I worked a lot on Khan Academy. Here you can see some questions that I did. I think I did a little more, but this was the only screenshot I could find. And so I originally used that. That increased my score quite a bit. And then in 11th grade, I was still doing the real SAT, or the paper SAT. And then I got all the way up to 1450, but then I had to use the summer to actually be able to study for the digital one. And so here are just some things that I did. I also think it's important to mention that back then, on my first test, I didn't have accommodations. So in the end, I had, I think, 50% extra time. That's just because of stuff that I have, for me test taking. That's stuff that you have to get done with your doctor. If you think you need accommodations or you need extra time, speak to your doctor about that. I'm not the person to prescribe that. But yeah, that is just something that I wanted to mention that is important, because it did make it for a different test experience for me. Yeah, but if that is something that you think that you need, I think that you should definitely try to get that, because at least for me in my school, you're in a different room. You're also able to have it's much quieter, and of course you do have that extra time. And it depends on how long your extra time is. You can have extra breaks. I think I have that as well. So I just want to mention that as well. I also mentioned that it took me a while. It took me 2 years, while others can take much less. And I know some of my friends, it took them 2 to 3 months to get a 1580. And so it's different for everybody. But I just wanted to I think right now, if you're starting, just trying your best, really practicing, you can get to the score that you want, hopefully, if you put in the work, right? So moving on to some resources, the first I'm going to talk about is math, because I didn't actually use that many math resources. I mainly just relied on the math that I learned back in the day, but there are still some good ones. And for example, there's some good textbooks that I can put up here. It's for the old SAT, I think, so be that as it may, it pretty much covers the same topics. I also did some Khan Academy, but I think this guy is also really good. But I also think that just reviewing, if you messed up something on a past test and then reviewing it later on, watching a YouTube video of somebody doing the test solutions, I think that's also very good. But yeah, it's just for me, SAT math was kind of just the general math we learned in the past. So I'm not going to touch too much about that, because I don't think I'm the most qualified to talk about that if I didn't really struggle with it as much, But what I did struggle with was reading and writing, and so I have many resources that I used for that, because I never really learned all the comma rules and all these things. You don't learn that, you kind of just speak, or at least for me. That was my experience. So the first one is score free courses. I must say, this guy posting his actual he's a tutor, I think, and he pays people have to pay him, but he released a whole series where he goes through all the stuff for free. So I use that, and I watch these. They're an hour long, but genuinely worth it. People would be paying for that, but you get it for free, so very useful. Then the second one, 60J, interesting channel name, but his series that he does for SAT questions are extremely useful. Genuinely, he is a lifesaver. And I think I mentioned in both of their comments that I like my score that I got, and they were very happy. Yeah, really nice guys in my opinion, from being able to help out in terms of teaching. And so then also the SAT Academy, I use them for some punctuation. And then I think another thing is Magooch's TOEFL words. I didn't actually take the TOEFL because I was in an English speaking institution, but those vocabulary, I'm sorry that they have to put you guys through that if you're taking the TOEFL, but Score actually recommended this in one of his videos, and they're very useful. And the last thing is Khan Academy, do the digital SAT courses, I did the original SAT, but do the digital SAT, all their lessons, all their activities, and yeah. And you have the summer, it's your time, and of course I think that, for me, before my final SAT, I really worked that whole summer just on preparing for stuff, preparing for IB, preparing for SAT, And so if you put in the work, if you put in like 2 hours a day, or if you actually like put in the work and you're able to improve, do that. And also, I would also mention a very good tip is once you finish a practice test, this was all practice, IB, SAT, whatever score you take, test you're taking, make sure, review all the questions you got wrong. Note down why you got them wrong. It's not a silly mistake. You made a mistake in your judgment somehow. So note it down, make sure that you note it and that you don't repeat it again. So that's just some of my advice. I try to make this as short as possible. So let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, thank you.